Hi everyone, this is Dr. Sherrill Sellman and welcome to Living a Totally Healthy Life on Total Health TV. Thanks for joining us today. This is a program where we have wonderful in-depth conversations that really are designed to support you in being informed about your health and well-being so you can make the best choices possible. And if you want to receive all of our conversations that we do, the many episodes we do every week, then please either go over to our Facebook page, like us there, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe there, or go to our website, which is totalhealthtelevision.com. Hope to see you every time we have one of these exciting conversations. And we have an exciting conversation today. We're going to be talking to Dr. Charles Benz, who is an author, speaker, and wellness consultant specializing in the prevention and reversal of chronic disease. And specifically, we're talking about his book, The Healthy Smoker. You may not know this, but 20% of the adult population in the United States smoke. But it's not just that population that we have to be concerned about. It's the 20%, the other 20% of the population that were smokers. And then there is the percentage of the population, which I believe is about 10%, that have exposure to smoke. So what does this mean? Why is it a risk to our health? Why is it a particular concern when we're dealing with this COVID situation? And most importantly, what can we do to create healthy lungs? And it's my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Charles Benz to the show today. Hello, Charles, and welcome.
Hello, Sherrill. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm so happy that we have this chance to have this conversation because I think smoking has kind of gotten left behind a bit in our public health awareness, and we need to talk more about it. We need to understand the consequences of smoking, not just if you are a present day smoker, but if you ever have been a smoker. And also the research you're doing is looking at the relationship between the risk from smoking and risk for COVID-19. So let's just jump in, Charles, and talk about what happens when a person smokes. What goes on within their lungs? What's the physiological impact of smoking?
Well, smoking creates a temporary high. So the particular chemicals, including nicotine and about 2,000 or 5,000 other things that are in every cigarette, they stimulate the production of glutathione in the brain. And so you've got this rush that smokers get. And the problem is it only lasts about 15 or 20 minutes. And then the body says, where is that? I'd like that again. And so your lungs then become the victim because it's the delivery agent for that chemical into the brain again. And so it's one of those things that smokers really have a problem stopping even for a half an hour because they're more or less in a state of anxious survival mode as their lungs and their brain have this little dance going on. And so that's where they're addicted and they need this fix all the time. And so that's the problem. That's why smokers at the workplace have a real problem. They're chewing gum. They're doing everything they can between smoke breaks.
So it's an addictive substance, which we know. And when you inhale that smoke, you said there were thousands of different chemicals in cigarettes.
Yeah,
Can you just
about
elaborate a bit more?
7,000 when you add them all up. Yeah, it's quite a large number. And not a large percentage, but a pretty nice percentage of them are carcinogenic. And so that's really one of the problems. People say, well, could I drink or could I smoke organic cigarettes? Would that be better? Yeah, that would be better. And would it be better if I smoked marijuana? Yeah, it'd probably be better from a toxic point of view. But there's still some implications for any of those kinds of smokers from the lungs point of view, because the lungs really not happy when you're putting that smoke into them.
I just have to ask, why are they putting so many chemicals? Well, and is it what the tobacco was sprayed with? Is it are they putting additional things in cigarettes that we don't know about that create greater Dependency?
Yes, I mean the nicotine is bad enough, but there's a lot of other chemicals in there that do create that kind of dependency, and I think that's one of the problems. But it's not the primary one. It's not the one I think we should worry too much about because yeah, it's in the ground when they grow the tobacco. It's in the air. It's in the water that they use. I mean, all those chemicals accumulate. It's kind of like why we say let's eat organic foods, whether it's fruits or vegetables, because those chemicals accumulate. And while we know that in many instances these chemicals are not dangerous when they're compared just one chemical to the dangerous levels of that chemical, when you add thousands of them together, you get a toxic stew, and it's very
Oh.
dangerous. And so, yeah, I don't think they're doing a lot of organic farming of tobacco. And so you're getting every chemical that plant has been subject to. And then there's some, yes, like you say, that the cigarette companies like to add for you have to preserve your product. And so these preservation chemicals, they're all in there too.
I don't think most people understand just how toxic cigarettes are, just the cigarette itself, what they do to the tobacco. But let's talk more about what's going on in the lungs, because that's where the problem is, and that's where our greatest concern is. What's happening, what occurs in the lungs that damages the lungs. And we'll talk about how long that damage lasts, and then of course what we can do to help repair.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's one of the problems is it's not just the lungs. These toxins, once they get into the bloodstream through the lungs, then they go distributing throughout the whole body. And so every cell in the body, like 60 trillion of them, have these toxins in these smokers. And so the addiction is not just with what happens when the glutathione hit happens in the brain. The addiction is in every cell. That's why we now have studies that show that cigarette smoking is as addictive as morphine. And in some cases, they found it to be as addictive as heroin. So when people say, I can quit, I'm not worried, no, you really can't quit. It's not that easy. You have to be extremely motivated and do a lot of the right things in order to be able to quit. So I would say the toxicity is everywhere in the body. And so we have to do a total body detoxification program in order to get those toxins out of the body because they're in every cell.
Okay, so that brings us to understanding the protocol to help people who are smokers or have been smokers. And I think before we talk about what you are doing, because you have developed a program to help people properly go through the steps to recover from that addiction and from the toxic harm that has occurred. But we need to explore a bit more about the consequences of smoking. And I wanted to ask you about vaping too, because that's what is going on as an alternative. What are your thoughts about vaping as to the damage to our body?
These are all matters of degree of insult, of cellular insult. So I don't see a lot of major benefits for vaping, other than you may be getting somewhat less of the nicotine and some of the chemicals, but it's still an insult to the cells. And the cells don't like any of those kind of toxic insults. So I don't see vaping as a big benefit. In some cases, actually, vaping is more serious because it's actually get quicker into the body and quicker into the lungs and quicker into the cells. And so that's why you have a lot of really strange health circumstances from people dying of vaping because it actually accelerates some of those detoxification pathways that actually cause a crisis in our body. So I have not seen really any beneficial science for vaping at all.
Well, you're just not getting the hot smoke into
Yeah,
your lungs.
yeah, that's right. That's
That
right.
that's about it, right? So you're still getting the direct mainlining of the nicotine. through that. Before we go into the protocol, I just want to say that there are many ways people have attempted to stop smoking. As you were saying, it's so addictive. And there's the gums and there's the patches. And I just want to share with you that I had a friend who never was depressed once in his life. He just never, depression wasn't his thing. He was a smoker. And when he stopped, he was given the patches and he immediately went into a deep depression, deep depression. I mean, it was very scary for him to see how he just totally changed into another person. So I think we need to warn people about these other ways of helping withdraw from the addiction and some of the risks and dangers associated with them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because when people say, well, I know that these drugs and these patches and everything, they don't really build the body. They don't have to repair the damage. It's really more than that. The body is very good at finding ways to bypass some of the normal detoxification and normal homeostasis balance systems in the body. And so with these drugs, no matter what delivery system is, whether it's the patch or the oral or whatever, they're actually looking at those symptoms and saying, okay, we need to find a bypass mechanism. And so that's what they're doing. They're trying to find these bypass mechanisms. So when you do that, then the body says, well, we don't like that. You've now disrupted our normal processes. And so we're going to say in return to you, okay, we're going to hand you this problem or that problem as a result because we didn't really like what you did. So the body has these deleterious impacts that happens when you try to bypass the normal processes. And that's what these drugs do. And a lot of drugs have the same problem. And not only that, these drugs tend to impede the absorption of nutrients in the body. And so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the people who are experiencing the problems you just mentioned, it's because they took it and they tried to bypass one of these detoxification pathways and disrupted something in a serious way. And then they found that they were getting reductions in certain nutrients because that was another reaction of the body. We don't like this, and here's what's going to happen to you. So these are all dangerous circumstances.
Okay, something else I wanted to ask. So we've been talking about the smoker. Then there's the past smoker, someone who's given up smoking, and they probably think that they're doing a good thing, which they are, but it doesn't mean that they have recovered from the effects of smoking. And then we have the passive smoker, the one who is in the presence of someone that has been smoking. And they are also affected. They are being compromised as well. So can we talk about the past smoker and the passive exposure? And then let's talk about what you have found in your research and why you have created such an effective program to really guide people back to health.
I think that's another one that leads me very nicely into the situation that if this was the only toxic thing they did, then we could probably deal with it effectively in some normal way. In other words, the body has its normal detoxification processes. But when you're looking at someone who is probably getting toxins from the food they eat, from the water they drink, and from the air they breathe, and from the radiation from their cell phones and their televisions and their computers, we're talking about a toxic insult that is of major proportions. And so now what you're saying is we have all these toxic things going on in our body. We're going to stop one of them. And do you think the body's then going to say, oh, goody, we're just going to give you a bypass now, and we're going to allow you to repair all the damage that was done? No, your body has gotten this damage from several different sources. And now the liver and the whole detoxification system is under assault and real challenge. So you stop, and that's good, but it's not therapeutic because the body needs therapeutic detoxification in order to start to reduce all of that accumulated detoxification that has happened over the years through these other sources. So you can't look at smoking alone. You have to look at all the toxins that are in the body, and then you have to detox all of them in a therapeutic way in order to get the recovery that you want.
And the point needs to be made, Charles, that this is also true for people who have stopped smoking. Just because you have quit doesn't mean you have recovered the healthy functioning of your lungs, right?
You've stopped about 10% of your insults, but the other 90% are still there, and the damage is still there. And so that's why I'm saying there's a difference between your body's normal detoxification processes and what you can do to accelerate that through designed detoxification programs, changing your diet, changing some supplements. You have to get aggressive with this. And so this is a call for your body to be regenerated, to have cell rebuilding going on. So that's why the first step in this process is detoxification. The second step is cell rebuilding.
Okay, so let's go and explore that first step a little bit more. What would you recommend people do to help start the detoxification process?
Well, there's a whole group of foods that are detoxification foods like celery and asparagus. And in the book, there's about 20 different foods, and it says, Kale, eat these foods and your body will accelerate your detoxification. And so then there's supplements, and it says take these supplements. Milk thistle helps to support the liver, as you know, but there's all other kinds of detoxification processes and tools that can be used. You can use a sauna, detoxify. You can exercise, that's detoxifying. So there's lots of things that you can do, because when you sweat, you're getting those toxins out of the body, whether it's through sauna or whether it's through exercise. And so you have to accelerate the detoxification process with those kinds of natural things. In fact, when we talk at the beginning of the book, we say there's 20 things that you can do. They're easier to do and better for you than trying to quit smoking, because you do these easier things first, and then your body will gradually detoxify, become less addictive. By the time you do that for 2 or 3 months, your body's not addicted anymore. And your body has lost a lot of the overall toxins. And now all of a sudden, if you try to quit, you're going to have a much higher success rate. That's what the whole book is about.
And that's a really important point. So what you're guiding people with in your research and what you've written in your book is, don't try to just cold turkey stop. You have to prepare the body, reduce the toxic load, support the natural functioning, so it's easier for the body to choose health rather than go back to an addictive space. And when you do that for a period of time, when you kind of cleaned up your shtick there, you're able to transition, because the body is now the evidence is more on the side of health than it is on compromised functioning. So it's easier to then move along and release the things that are compromising our health, as opposed to being, toxic all the time and then trying to just stop. But you have this overload of toxicity that is compromising every single function in your body.
Absolutely. I mean, I developed this program in the workplace. It's a 6-week program. And actually, it was one of the only programs in the country that was approved under Obamacare, because it was non-discriminatory in terms of the fact that it was good for everybody, and it didn't require chemicals and a lot of other things. And so it was a whole body, whole food approach. And it got approved. And so in all the insurance companies that I dealt with, they were giving major discounts to employees that were able to use this program. And they gave those discounts even before you stopped smoking. In other words, if you just joined the program, the employer and the insurance company would reduce the cost of your insurance by 50%, just because you were making the effort. Now, if after a year of doing this, you weren't able to quit smoking, you had to go take my course again. in order to get that 50%, sustain that 50% reduction. But those that quit got it as well very quickly. And so we ended up getting about a 70 to 80% recidivism rate in smoking cessation through this program. And I think that's one of the real success stories of this. We got people to quit who had tried to quit 5 and 10 times before and couldn't, but now they were able to.
Wow, that's great. And what have you found to be the most effective nutrients to help in regenerating the body and from the damage, from the toxins, from cigarettes, from the nicotine? What would be some of your top recommendations if people wanted to start supporting their body? Where would they go?
Well, one of the things that I had come up with early on in this program was the fact that people needed to eat a lot more vegetables. They needed to eat like 7 to 9 helpings of vegetables a day. The average person is not ready to do that. I mean, you literally have to eat 2 or 3 vegetables at every meal in order to get that quota, right? So I did some research on green drinks, and I found a really good one that actually was able in one scoop to give you 9 to 10 helpings of greens in this one scoop. The problem is that we had the employer pay for it in several cases, and the employees started using it. And the week after they started using it, they would come to the workshop and they would complain, "This tastes like I'm licking my lawnmower. I mean, this is really bad stuff." And I did 2 things to them. I said, "Look, you can add some fruit to this shake. You can make it actually a beneficial shake in more ways than one," because I was also encouraging them to use what we call the serotonin shake. And the serotonin shake is something developed by Dr. Gray, the Mars and Venus guy. And when he first got diagnosed with having tremors, Parkinson's tremors, and he was going to get L-Dopa shots in Mexico. And he did that for about 3 months, and then he thought, you know what, this really sucks. I don't want to go to Mexico and get these shots. Anyway, the long and the short of it is he developed this serotonin shake, which is in my book on page 132. And it actually gives your body a very big hit of serotonin. And serotonin replaces the requirements that the cigarettes provide with the glutathione. So now if you add a scoop of green to it, you've got 2 things happening at once. You've got all this detoxification power from the greens, and you've got this brain health program by getting the serotonin in there. Within 2 to 3 weeks, people are going, "I feel like a different person. I really do." So it works.
Yeah.
It works very well.
Yeah. So did he add some neurotransmitters like 5-HTP to that drink to help with the serotonin?
Well, what he did, the formula is actually pretty simple. I mean, he actually said, look, there's 6 things you really need. You need whey protein. And so one of the things was whey protein, and then you need to have some really good oxygenated water. We happen to know what that is. It's Volvic or it's Fiji water. And he said, then you need some almonds, you need some molasses, you need some apple, and you need some flax seeds. And that's basically the ingredients. Grind everything up, get it in the shake, and then, for me, add that green drink. Well, now you get something that tastes pretty good, got all this serotonin power in it, and all this green detoxification power in it. We had people who actually, after 5 or 6 weeks, they were reversing their heart disease problems. They were reversing their diabetes. They were getting so much benefit. The HR person said, "What in the hell is in this drink? This is really amazing stuff." Well, they were eating better. They were taking this and they were exercising. Guess what? That's all you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. It's not as difficult or as complicated as we think it is. And when you start nourishing the body, it just becomes, you feel so good that you don't need to rely on a cigarette to deal with your anxiety. You don't even have anxiety. You can manage life so much better.
That's exactly the point. They started to feel so much better after week 2 and 3 that they were just saying that they had no idea how bad they felt before, because that whole feeling of bad had sort of crept up on them over the years. And it was so gradual that they didn't know how really sick and symptomatic they were. And all of a sudden, they got such an improvement in 2 or 3 weeks that they went, we had no idea how sick we were until we found out how well we could be.
Yeah. 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 That's wonderful. And I know you've been doing a lot of research in the last couple of months with this COVID-19, and you actually have some correlation between smoking and increased risk for COVID-19. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, anything that compromises the lungs, whether it's COPD or asthma or allergies, all of these things cause the cells in the lung to lose their capacity to detoxify. I mean, one of the things that the cells in the lung do is they oxygenate everything, and actually they take all the carbon dioxide and all the other things out of the body and remove it as part of the detoxification process. And so, if that process is overwhelmed, then those cells can't do their jobs. And so, in COVID, we know this is accelerated because uh, we have these things called ACE2 receptors. And these ACE2 receptors are now found to be one of the places where the COVID can actually land and actually get into the cells in order to do their dirty deed. And guess what? There's more of these ACE2 receptors in the lungs than there is anywhere else in the body. Now, there's also a lot in the brain and in the liver and the kidneys and in the linings of the vessels, blood vessels in the body. And so we're finding out there's damage in all of those places in the body as a result of this COVID. And so the lungs are the precipitator of all of this, but there's other parts of the body that are victims. And even asymptomatic people who've never had any symptom at all, they're now testing them and finding out they have lung damage, they have kidney damage, they have liver damage, they have brain damage, and they never had any symptoms. But because the virus was in them, the virus went ahead and attacked these ACE2 receptors.
So what do we do?
Well, this is going to be a problem for the medical community that they don't even think about or know about right now because they get so many things, other things on their plate. But the ramifications of this in the next 5 to 10 years are going to be extremely serious because we now know that there are some situations where high degrees or high percentages of people are asymptomatic. There were 4 state prisons in one of the states where they tested every prisoner. They found out that 96% of them had the virus but had no symptoms. And so now you have to say to yourself, why is that? How is that even possible? I'm going to give you a little secret I think is going to really shock the world. Stanford University Medical School did a study and found out that 88% of the adult population has a compromised immune system. And guess what happens in a prison? They get 4 decent, well-balanced meals, at 3 every day, 3 meals every day. They can't go and get a lot of sugar. They can't go and buy pastries and candy bars. They can't get a lot of alcohol. And so this sugar and this alcohol, these are things that compromise the white blood cell immunity in our body. So what's happening is they're not being exposed to excessive toxins. Even though they're in close quarters, 96% of them had no symptoms. But you're going to find out that they did have some damage done because they did have this toxin in their body. But their diet caused them to have enough immunity that they were able to avoid the symptoms. So there's a double-edged sword here. They're still going to get sick later on down the road from the damage done to those ACE2 receptors in their body, but they didn't get the big hit on the lungs and the other parts of the body that the other people got.
And so that's, that information is more reason why people really need to understand how important it is to make a commitment to their health, to boosting their immune system, to letting go of behaviors that and habits that no longer support them, that compromise our immune system. If anything, this situation that we've been in should really be a wake-up call to people to get healthy, to make it a high priority in their lives, because that's our greatest protection. And that's what your message really is all about, Charles.
I think that the Stanford study really said it all. I mean, we've been saying for years that a large percentage of the population doesn't eat a healthy diet. The National Cancer Institute did a study of 16,000 people aged 2 to 80. They could not find one person with a healthy diet. And in fact, they had 14 different categories of nutrition. And the majority of the people in that study, 11 out of they were deficient in 11 out of the 14 categories. That means that people aren't eating enough fiber, enough nuts and seeds, enough vegetables, enough fruits, enough healthy protein. I mean, the diet in this country is abysmal. And this is why we have the highest percentage of people infected around the world, because the United States has the worst diet in the world. And that's why we're having all this problem.
And it never gets discussed. That never becomes a public health announcement, does it? It's
No,
ignored totally. And
no.
in fact, if there are suggestions for boosting the immune system, they are attacked or they're censored out of the internet. It's hard to find them, which is such a crime, I think.
Well, compare what the virologists that are on the mainstream media talking from the White House, compare that to a virologist that I know called Dolores Cahill, one of the most intelligent, well-studied virologists in the world. I mean, she advises whole countries on what they should be doing with this virus. And what she basically said, and you can go on her YouTube video and see it, is that if you eat a decent diet, and you take vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc, you will never have any damage from this virus. You will never have any symptoms, and you will certainly never die. And so she's told Ireland, which is her home country, she would stake her life, her career, her license, everything she has on the facts that she has accumulated. And so that's just a juxtaposition of a virologist who's looked at nutrition, who studied it for 20 years, and says, wait a minute, we're missing an important part of this equation. So I just think it's criminal that we're not listening to people like her.
Is really a book for everyone, isn't it? If you have strategies in there to help detoxify, it's not just for the smoking population or the ex-smokers or the passive smokers. It's really for everyone who wants to find some simple strategies, but yet profound and effective strategies to support detoxification and upregulate their health on many levels.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. That's the head of the nail with the hammer. That's nutrition. I think that the point is, a lot of people who read the book actually have emailed me and said, it says it's a book about smoking cessation. This is a book about health. This is a book about for anybody. And so when that got out there, I had people buying the book just because they wanted to get healthier. And so you're absolutely 100% right. I wish I could give it another title, but unfortunately, the title is what it is, and I think the word of mouth will carry that through. And I hope your video and I know that John at Total Health Magazine did an article on this back in March of last year. I think eventually it'll get out there, and I know there are a number of doctors now who are using this protocol. And I even had a dentist in Indianapolis say that he wouldn't take any more patients unless they read the book and stopped smoking. Now, to me, that's a really forward-thinking dentist. And he bought hundreds of these books and handed them out free to people in the pharmacy in his building and said, if you want to be a healthy smoker, this is the way to do it. If you want to be my patient, you're going to have to read this book and quit smoking, or you can't be my patient. This was a dentist.
Well, I'm happy that you've been able to have such success and get that word out to so many people throughout the world. And of course, that's what we're doing here, is helping to educate people and let them know that these wonderful resources are available. What's the best place for people to get your book?
Well, I think it's now back on Amazon again. It's a book that's in the order. It gets printed on order, and so it's there. I think under Amazon. Certainly at my site, you can get it, drcharlesbenz.com, and also on my other site, behealthyatwork.com. And we obviously like to sell them in bulk because we don't want to handle one book at a time. We prefer Amazon to do that. But for anybody that's really that interested in it, we end up getting multiple orders from people. They order it once, and then they want 5 for their friends, and they want 10 for their place of business. So one order is not a sin. We accept one orders all the time. But there's at least those three places they can get the book.
Well, that's great. And I want to thank you for the great work you've been doing and spreading the message of how easy it is really to commit to a healthy diet, to a healthy lifestyle, and why it's important to do so. So thank you so much for all that you have been doing to help share this message. And thank you again for being on the show, Charles. You are always an inspiration, and I know we'll have you back because you have lots more to share with us.
Thank you, Sherrill. You gave me a chance to talk about it in a way that I never had before, and I really appreciate that.
That's great. Glad to hear that. And to all of you listening and watching, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you'll be coming back to all of our episodes. And remember, if you want to catch every single episode, it's just filled with so much great knowledge and wisdom, then go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube channel, or just go right to our website, TotalHealthTelevision.com, because all of our episodes are posted there. So until next time, take care, be healthy, have a great week. Bye for now.